Do, do, boo, boo. I used to love that song when I was a kid.
That's so weird.
I was like, what's a gigolo? And I just, like, didn't know what a gigolo was.
Did you ask people?
Yeah. And they were like, you're not a gigolo.
Rafi's Rambles, Rafi's Rambles, Rafi's Rambles.
Hola, you amazing artists, and welcome to the studio again.
It's true.
It's not like we're going to be somewhere else. We're in the studio.
You don't know. One day we could be in the car.
Whoa.
Who knows where we might be? But for today, we are in the studio.
Yep.
And we're talking about keeping going, being at a crossroads. And let me just get into the question.
Get into the question.
Our question comes from KJ. And KJ's website is KristenWickershamFineArt.com for anyone who's interested. KJ watches our YouTube videos. Question. I started my art business over 2 years ago after I moved to the West Coast. I found that there's a wonderful community of supporting artists here, but I'm continuing to struggle to find my niche audience. I am not able to sustain my business financially, so I have to work other jobs that take up most of my time. And right now I'm at the crossroads of either closing my business for good or keep trying to make it work. I love art and I want to be a full-time artist more than anything, but I need to find a better solution. Any help is appreciated. And I thought about this question and where I was at 2 years into making jewelry full-time, trying to make jewelry full-time.
Yeah.
Just transitioning from the flea market to our farmer's market. And it was tumbleweeds and crickets. And I was starting to get a little bit of traction, but really still no one cared about me or my art at that point.
I mean, we were not raking into dough when we were 2 years in.
It did not look financially sound or viable. We still looked completely insane to our friends and family. They were like, when are you going to knock it off already?
At that point, I was still, let me see if I can remember correctly, because I was at the Palafox Market when I first got there. I was selling a bunch of my small tree pieces for like $5. I was selling a 16 by 20 for $40. So like my prices still hadn't gone up and it was like 2 years in. Were we able to make a living? Yes, because we were living
dirt poor, like dirt cheap.
Dirt cheap.
We had recently at the 2 year mark made the transition from losing money on our booth spaces to breaking even most of the time. And then sometimes making a little bit of profit, like enough to maybe get some dinner that night. Yeah. Things weren't looking great. So obviously it's like every day you get up and you have a choice to make. Am I going to keep doing this thing? Especially if the people around you are like, this is crazy. KJ, you said you have a great community of supporting artists. That's wonderful. So you do have a choice to make.
I mean, one of the things, KJ, is that when we got started, we would do a show every single weekend. Every single weekend, there were some weekends that we did 3 shows, but we did at least 1 show every single weekend. From getting started at the flea market to doing the Palafox Market to doing art walks, on Friday art walks and different things like that in the surrounding towns, we were putting our stuff out there as much as possible. So like, if I sold 2 pieces at one show or if I sold 1 piece at one show and then that weekend then I sold 2 pieces at another show, like, little by little that started adding up, but I mean, it wasn't like big money. And that's where we started. What's interesting though, from your question that I see here is that you said something about that you were struggling to find your niche audience. And I personally have a hard time with that. Not because there isn't some relevance there. Like if you're able to find your niche audience, it's one of the things that a lot of like those art consultants or art mentors or whatever, those people that you find online that do like online marketing for artists and all that stuff and talk about like Facebook ads and whatever, they are very, very keen to get you to reach your niche audience, right? So a niche audience, for example, is if you do pet portraits. Now, if you do pet portraits, it's very easy to market your art because then you're going to market it to pet lovers. You're going to maybe talk to Petco and do something in their parking lot or something like that. Like it's easy for you to really target a market of people that would have an appreciation for your art. Me personally, I don't have a niche. So like for me to do something like that would require me to settle down on one specific thing that I know would sell.
Right, which you had the choice to do at one point,
Yes.
because one of your series was really starting to take off, and you could have just hit that really hard
Yep.
and milked that for everything, and you had that choice.
When you do something like that is niche, that is a great business move, because then at that point you could really, really target your market, and you could really, really target your audience. But it also, being an artist, to me personally, like I understood that, yes, I could do that now. And in the short term, this is going to be great. But in the long term, I'm going to feel trapped by the niche that I set myself up in. And so, I settled into the idea that this career was going to be a slow burn.
A long game.
Because when you are not doing what basically everyone else when they get into marketing is doing, which is like they're setting up their niche market and they're promoting, they're doing targeted ads and they're doing this and they're doing that. When you're not doing what everyone else is doing and your niche is just you as an artist, that means that you have to formulate they're not out there already. You don't have a bunch of there wasn't a bunch of Rafi lovers out there. Like,
just waiting.
Yeah. It's not like next to the pet lovers was a bunch of Rafi lovers. Just like, we can't wait till he finds that, like that didn't exist. So I knew that it was going to take time to be able to form that.
And to find your people literally one at a time.
Yeah, to let my people find me.
Yeah, you're right.
Because the only way that I could do that was by putting myself out there as much as possible, which was the reason that for the first 5 years, we did every show that we could. Now, we did a lot, and it's actually not something that I recommend because we easily could have burned out very quickly.
We did burn out eventually on doing the shows.
Because we were just doing way too much. But it got to the point that people started to recognize us and people started to know who we were. But really, this didn't turn into like a legit career for us till about 5 years in. And that's after like doing a hell of a ton of putting ourselves out there a lot.
Yeah.
And creating a lot of artwork.
And because of that, we did think about some of the like brass tacks of it too. Like, where can we reduce expenses and overhead to make this viable? Where can we get the most bang for our buck? So in the beginning, we were paying incredibly high booth fees for showing and not even breaking even. And we had to make the transition to, luckily for us, fortunately for us, a situation where it was actually lower fees to show and we were making more money.
Yeah.
So that was something to consider. We've always chosen to work out of a home studio to reduce overhead there.
Yeah.
We're scrappy and resourceful.
Yeah, very scrappy. One thing that I could say is that it's not like we got started and everything was just rolling, or like everything we tried was, perfect and just worked out beautifully in their favor. Like, there were a lot of things that we tried. I tried doing different types of events and marketing and doing stuff like that to try and get my name more out there, to try and build my audience. And some of the things worked, some of the things didn't. But what I would do is try and challenge myself to innovate a new outside of the box way of approaching the public with what I do and who I am in some way, shape, or form, and just getting it out there in front of people. And like I said, some months it was awesome. Like when I did the scavenger hunt, that was awesome. Some months, not so much.
Right.
But a lot of our people knowing who we were was based on the fact that we did so many shows. And we did so many shows, not only in our town, but in some of the surrounding towns that were like 60 to 100 miles away.
Yeah.
We did shows in the surrounding town, and just anything that we could get our hands on, that we could get out there, we did. And it was a lot of work, and basically our entire lives revolved around the production of art and doing shows.
Yeah.
Production of art, doing shows. That's
Hitting
what. That's
full-time,
one of the
yeah.
reasons. Like, I don't recommend it. Like, we were like hitting it full time, hard. promoting ourselves over and over and over everywhere we went. Did not pay for ads, didn't do any of the niche market. Like, you need to have a niche market if you're going to do promoted ads, because you got to know who you're promoting to. Since we didn't have a niche market, we just got out there everywhere. Like, basically throwing a wet sock at the wall.
Yeah.
And just kept doing it. And eventually our people started to find us.
Now, KJ is working jobs that take up most of her time in order to support herself so she can do it. So you have the disadvantage of not being able to be all in and doing all the things all the time. But you also have the advantage of not needing to solely rely on the art income.
Yes.
And you maybe are a little more able to do the slow burn, to give it time. Because 2 years in, man, there's still so much out there for you.
Yeah.
There's so much more for you to experience. So my straight up answer is keep going, dude.
My answer to that is it's really simple. If you stop now, you're going to feel like you failed, because the only way that you could fail at doing something is if you quit. It's not about making millions of dollars or even being able to do this thing. How do you know that you won't get to a place where you're able to support yourself with your art? And if you knew that it would take 5, 6, 7 years, would you keep doing what you're doing now? And it's being innovative and not allowing yourself to give up. Because when you give up, then yeah, of course, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to move forward when it comes to your art career. I get this because for the longest time, that was something that I experienced. I would try something, I would jump into it, I would give it a couple of years, and then I would get discouraged and just figure, like, whatever, it's not in the cards for me. I'm just gonna, like, succumb to this other life and give up on that one thing. And if there's anything that I understand now, is what I ended up with when I made those choices was not the idea that I made a good choice. It was regret. I regretted not
seeing it through.
Just seeing it through. And especially, like you're saying, like, art, this is something that means something to you.
It's something you want. And
it's one of the reasons that in the videos, when I'm talking about starting your art career, I try to make the emphasis, take the money aspect out of it. Take the money aspect out of it and remember why it is that you create what you create. It's hard when you get out there and you're talking to other artists and other supportive artists. You know, one of the first things they would ask us after we did a show was like, how'd you do? And what they meant was, how much money did you make? Was it a good show?
Yeah.
And in our minds, because of our mindset, because we knew that we couldn't make money the goal, because the money is not the goal of the art. Obviously, we wanted to make money, but that was not our goal. Our goal was to meet as many new people as we possibly could and talk about our art with new people. And so, like, anytime we did a show, whether we sold one piece or sold none, it was always successful for us because we always engaged in some deep conversation with someone. And we were able to push ourselves out. You know, we're not naturally conversational people. So the idea of doing these shows was also part of that, like pushing outside of our comfort zone and
gaining that confidence.
Yeah, getting ourselves to be comfortable with that. Don't give up on yourself, because you're way too freaking awesome to live with any kind of regret for not doing what it is that you really want to do.
Right. And why would you give up on yourself? Especially if you're passionate about what you're doing. So, like, let's say I still wasn't having a financially viable situation over there at the jewelry bench. I would still want to make jewelry.
Yeah.
So I would still be trying.
I mean, it's one of the reasons we do all the things we do. You know, like, I wanted to write a book. Has the book been financially like, whoa, I'm rolling in it now? No, not yet. Maybe someday. But I wrote a book.
Yeah.
I didn't give up. I had given up for so many years and I didn't give up. We do music. We write music. We're not raking into dough for making music.
No.
In fact, the only thing, we do these videos. We're not raking in dough from doing these videos.
It's actually costing us money to write music.
Yeah, it costs us money to make music. It costs us money to make the videos. Like, our career has gotten to a point where 10 years in, where, like, we're able to support our other creative projects with it. And why do we do them? Because we want to, because we love to, because potentially someday, maybe 10 years down the road, I'll be making money with my book. Maybe 10 years down the road, we'll be making some money, maybe 20 years down the road. But if we stop doing it now because it's not financially viable, it's never going to get there.
Right. And the fact of the matter is, it's satisfying and fulfilling, and it brings us joy now.
Yeah.
And the quality of life would suffer if we gave it up.
My answer, I could only speak for myself, is don't give up.
Keep going.
Keep going.
That's our 2 cents.
Yeah.
Thank you, KJ, for this question. I know we've all faced that situation. Sometimes every day, for several days, for several months, for several years, you get up and you're like, can I do this? And just ask yourself, I'm going to do this today. Can I rally today? I can do this today.
KJ, I could tell you from personal experience that I spent the majority of my life giving up. Getting started on something and really seeing it through to a certain point and then giving up and then feeling that regret, especially when it came to my art, like a lifetime worth of it. And it wasn't until my late 30s that I finally decided to just to understand that the only way that you could actually fail is if you give up. Obviously, I'm not going to beat myself up and wish that I learned that lesson earlier in my life. Because I'm here now and I'm doing this thing and it's taken me 10 years to get where I'm at. So had I given up a couple of years ago, I wouldn't be here. And I had every excuse. We had every excuse in the world to give up 2 years ago.
We had tons of great excuses to give up, for sure.
Basically, it is remembering that no matter what everything looks like around you, and no matter how many people out there expect you to justify why you're doing what you're doing, that you stay doggedly optimistic.
Doggedly optimistic, stupidly hopeful.
Yep. Just stay stupidly hopeful and let them argue amongst themselves whether or not you've lost your mind or not.
And they will.
Then they will. You just keep doing your thing and being awesome at being you. Let me know what your guys' opinion is. When there's been any time in your life that you face that where you're like, and a lot of times, like I tell people, like, sure, you run into a roadblock. Maybe it's time to switch things up a little bit. Maybe it's time to innovate. Maybe it's time to change direction slightly, but don't give up. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. You guys are absolutely freaking amazing. I totally adore you. And if you like this and you want to watch more like this, just click right over here to subscribe. And that's it. Say goodbye, Klee.
Good day.
Adios.